like to welcome you to our BMCC webinar today, an initiative of the BMCC Higher Education Committee. Today's topic is the student voice in a time of change, in line with the publication of the same name, which we have just launched. This publication is available on our website, www.bmcc.org.my. We are pleased to have with us today a very diverse panel. We have academia and student leaders representing the UK and Malaysia, along with industry. We're excited that we'll be hearing from a wide range of perspectives today. We would like to extend a very warm welcome to the CEO and Provost of Heriot-Watt University, Malaysia, Prof. Mushtak Al-Atabi. Welcome, Prof. Mushtak. Thank you for joining us. From University of Malaya, or UM, we are pleased to welcome the Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Academic and International, Prof. Dr. Kamila bin Ghazali. Welcome, Prof. Kamila. So glad you could make it. From PwC Malaysia, we are delighted to welcome the Campus Engagement Lead, Mr. Kent Tan. Kent, thank you for coming. Representing the student voice from Royal Holloway, University of London, we welcome the Student Engagement Officer, Mr. Jack Wright. Good morning, Jack. Thank you for joining us. From Malaysia, we are pleased to welcome the President of the Student Council from the International University of Malaya, Wales, Ms. Raja Rajaswari. Welcome, Raja. Thank you for coming. Moderating our session for today will be the Regional Director from Asia from iGraduate, Mr. Guy Paring. Guy, thank you for coming and for guiding us through the conversation today. Once again, a huge thank you to all our panelists and our moderator for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. Before we start the session, a little bit of housekeeping. Please be forthcoming with your questions during the session and send them in through the Q&A function available at the bottom of your screen instead of in the public chat function. We will attempt to address your questions if time permits. Please also indicate which speaker your question is for. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Guy to start the discussion. Guy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Phoebe. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's, or as Phoebe mentioned, this morning's webinar, if you're joining from the UK. The subject is the student voice in the time of change. And this webinar came about really because of the decision by the Malaysian government to look at the reintroduction of student unions, and saw also a focus on the importance of the student voice. Of course, this move towards student unions has taken a bit of a back seat because of various changes in government, as well as the pandemic itself. But we still believe that the student voice is perhaps even more important during these difficult times for all of us. We need to hear their views and let it shape our strategies, both institutional and corporate. My background is a research consultancy called iGraduate, and we aim to benchmark the student experience across the world, capturing the authentic voice of the students, we hope, globally, and helping institutions to improve the overall student journey. In terms of student councils and student representative bodies, we do actually ask students if they're satisfied with the work of their student body. And in Malaysia, 90% of your students said they were either satisfied or very satisfied with their student representative bodies, which compares very well with the UK, which is at 88%. However, if in Malaysia we look at just international students, the satisfaction rate is lower at 87%, which indicates perhaps that there is a challenge for ensuring that international students feel represented within the student bodies. So with that background and those kind of statistics in mind, and the challenges we've had to face over the last 12 months or so, let's turn to our distinguished panel. First of all, if we can start, Prof. Kamila, with yourself. How have you ensured that you've listened to students during these unprecedented times, and you've ensured their views have been an important part of your strategy?
Thank you, Guy. And Thank you for inviting me to the panel. It's a real pleasure to be here. Well, from the start of the pandemic, we have actually taken into consideration the students' voice. Maybe not at the very beginning, because it was, it caught all of us off guard. And at that point in time, when the movement control order came about, our students were already on their way home, because we had changed our teaching and learning into online even before the MCO had taken place. So some of them felt that it was better for them to access their lessons from home. But we had to sort out a lot of things, because we knew that the students were not all accessible to the lessons once we started our second half of the semester again. So what happened was, when the MCO happened, we decided that our mid-semester break should be brought forward. So our mid-semester break was when, we didn't have any lessons and all that. So it gave us time to just sort things out, before we started again. So it was a really long and extended semester break last year that we had taken. So in the meantime, what we did was, we ran surveys, and I'm sure a lot of the universities also did the same. It was survey fatigue at the beginning, because we sent out survey after survey, wanting to know, how many of our students couldn't access the internet and what we can do about it. So we managed to get a data plan for them and so on. So that was the formal part. But at the same time, we have student representatives communicating back to us directly. The student leaders have my mobile number. They are in constant contact with me by WhatsApp, and they email me, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, the other deputy vice chancellors as well. So that was the beginning. But as we go on during this discussion, I can tell you further about other ways that we got feedback from them, because we actually held a postmortem workshop where we had included the students together with the deans and deputy deans and the rest of the academic staff, to find out from them at the end of the semester how the whole semester went for them.
Kamila, sorry, you mentioned the data plan. I mean, tell us about that, because I know that was an important issue for students, wasn't it? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So, as you know, in public universities in Malaysia, most of the students, in fact, for University of Malaya, more than 60% of our students belong to the lower, income group. So they are the B40, as we call them. They are below, the income group. So many of them might not have access to the internet once they get back home, depending on where they are. And during the start of the survey, when we started, sending out surveys, we wanted to find out exactly who was affected by this. So we had worked out with one of the, am I allowed to say the name of the company? Yeah. So we worked out with Telkom, for them to give us a really good deal for our students. So once we know who the students were, we worked out with them, and Universiti Malaya actually paid for the data plan for this group of students. It didn't cover all the students, but the most impacted students, say about like 2,000 of them, I believe, that we had covered for the year, actually. So they would be able to access the lessons once we get back to the second half of the semester.
Great, thank you. Mushtak, over to you. Same question. How have you ensured that your students are heard during these unprecedented times?
Well, we definitely did very similar things to what Prof. Kamila has mentioned. So we have the pulse surveys and other course surveys and so on. But we also work towards communicating to the students that we have their back. So for example, from day one MCO, I created a daily video for the first 60 days, every day, Saturday, Sunday, a 2-minute video to our students and staff, telling them, to stay positive and talking about a certain theme. And because of this, students start writing back to me about the challenges that they're facing, or just by saying, keep the videos coming and things like that. I also had a live session with our student leaders. So they went on to the students and they collected all their questions, including questions asking for discounts and asking for financial aids and all of that. And then I sat together with the student president, and he asked me and I answered. And I think these sessions were very well attended by the students. The other thing that we did, which I think maybe is a bit unique to our university because of our size and other things. So at Heriot-Watt University, Malaysia, every one of our community staff and students will need to develop an impact statement, which is a statement to say how will they use their life and their knowledge and their magic to make the world a better place. And we run this in the first semester of the undergraduate students. We used to do this in big sessions, but because of the pandemic, we had to digitize them and we had to do them on a 1-on-10. So one staff, we call him or her an impact coach, to work with 10 students. And these sessions, these small sessions, were an amazing opportunity for us to really listen to the struggles of our students. Our students may not struggle because they don't have money to buy the internet package, but they have everybody has their own challenges. And I think to listen to them and to be able to empathize with them and see the difficulties that they have been through. Now, for that impact statement work, it happens over 4 weeks, for 2 hours, 3 hours each week, 2 hours each week. And we had 42 impact coaches, so quite a number of our staff, for the first time, particularly the professional services staff who helped us, were for the first time listened to the challenges of the students. So this is how we kept in touch with our students, and we encouraged them to speak up and speak up.
Great, thank you very much. So both Prof. Kamila and Prof. Mushtak have sort of touched on the important themes of empathy with the students' issues, but also that continual sort of that avenue of communication to pick WhatsApps and mobile phones so that students can feel they've got a voice that they can find. Over to you, Raja. Raja, do you, as a student leader, how important has your voice been during the pandemic?
All right, thank you so much, Guy, for your question. Right, so so I'm the president of Student Council President of IUMW in my university for the past year, and in the middle of our tenure, the pandemic happened, and we had to go into MCO. And I believe as a student council president, or even student council communities, as like student leaders, they will understand that the importance of your role lays in communication. Because you have, as student council leader, you are basically maintaining two important stakeholders, which are the management as well as the students of the university, right? So our role, especially being virtual, we had to ensure we maintain the presence in between both of these stakeholders. This is also to ensure that students don't resort to other platforms to vent out their struggles and challenges, but to ensure that they come to us and we try to consolidate them into one system, or one way of communication straight to the management. So in IMW, actually, they actually allowed me and also my vice president to sit in the Senate meetings when they were held physically. Right, so we had a seat in the Senate meeting for the first 30 minutes to present what issues students were facing at that point of time. So it was a monthly check-in with me on behalf of the students in the university, right? And when we went virtual, we had personal sessions with, like a monthly session with the Student Affairs Department, not exactly the Vice-Chancellor, but the department. And these were the sessions that we used to voice out problems that the students were facing and challenges the students were facing to the management team, right? And also with our council team members, we took the added step, you know, to even like try to write down proposals on how we believe the fees could be better utilized, because students were requesting for funding, right? And you know, instead of giving them a one-way answer of no, the management said no, and you know they're not going to refund your funds, we try to see what we can do and try to see how we can negotiate with the management on behalf of the students, right? So we wrote in proposals, tried to, you know, allocate funding, suggest recommendations on how the funding should be allocated a certain way, and etc. So there were a few problems that we actually managed to highlight to the management, which were on the lack of access on internet connections that students were facing, mental health issues, having exams in the middle of a pandemic, better ways to conduct virtual examinations, structures, and etc. So yes, I think I was given the honor to be the president, but my team was also a very strong team in the student council. And I think in general, the university has students that are all willing to, you know, voice out voice out suggestions and voice out on behalf of their fellow students that are facing struggles and challenges, right? So it isn't just a one-person duty, but there are actually many student leaders in our university community. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. And yeah, the very good point you made about the fact that sort of part of your responsibility was ensuring they're not going onto Instagram or Twitter and raising objections there, but they feel that they have again, we've spoken about this, a channel for communication to the institution. Ken, moving over to you as an employer, obviously you've been engaging with a wide range of students and graduates over the last few years. Have you noticed an increase, Kent, in how students are wanting their voice to be heard?
Yes, but not enough. Okay. Obviously, students' voice to an employer is as important as it is, you know, compared to our own employee, and that's simply because graduates are the foundation of a lot of organizations where they will come in and contribute and then subsequently be the next workforce of the future. Therefore, the voices coming from students, right, is one of the insights that we would get in regards to, right, what will be the workforce of the future be like. And hence, a lot of these, you know, voices coming from students are very important. But I think at this moment, unfortunately, there are, but at a very minimal stage. And obviously, then, you know, if we could get that bits of, you know, voices to be heard, right, quite more often or not, is then one of the key aspects that we always try to work very closely with when it comes to engagements with students. Now, a lot of the meetings and discussions that we normally would have with student bodies, instead of it being, you know, a one-way conversation where employers direct the student bodies to execute whatever that's needed based on the strategy, we strongly encourage a lot of the student bodies, right, to be the sound of the students, to share and to also give us insights as to what would the students be looking for. Because at the end of the day, for all the great initiative that, you know, a lot of organizations would have, you know, set up, but if it doesn't align with what the students are looking for and ultimately what they are after, at the end of the day, I think it does no benefits to either party itself. Which is why I think here, if there are any students listening or any student leaders, I would strongly encourage, you know, for all of them to be able to get their voice heard. Okay. Great,
thank you very much. Thanks, Kent. Moving on to an example from the UK. Jack, we've had lots of debate about the role of students' unions in Malaysia, and we've got tentative plans to reintroduce them. But Royal Holloway's got a fairly unique system of capturing the student voice. Jack, maybe you can tell us about that.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Guy. And thanks for the opportunity to be here today as well. So Royal Holloway, I suppose I'll give a little bit of background about the university for those who might not be familiar. So Royal Holloway sits in the University of London group, but it's actually in Surrey, southwest of London. So it's about a 40-minute train ride out of London to get to Royal Holloway. It's a campus-based university. It's about 75% of our students are undergrads, with about 25% of those coming from outside the UK as well. So it's predominantly home university and predominantly undergrad. So in my role as student engagement officer, one of the primary projects that I look after is the Royal Holloway 100 or the RH100, which is essentially a large focus group made up of students from across the university who meet in order to hold group discussions related to college strategy, for example, or changes that might be affecting campus and so on. So as you say, Guy, Royal Holloway does have a fairly unique system in that the students' unions, which are predominantly the champions of student voice, and certainly I think come to talk later about the role that they play at the university. The RH100 is a project which is separate from the students' union, and so in a sense, I think it's a particularly interesting project because there is that differentiation between where the project sits and how students then perceive that. So the RH100 is seen as a highly successful project, and I think it's one that students recognise and relate to quite strongly as well. We've had the opportunity to talk about some really interesting topics as well in previous years, like student wellbeing, for example, which led to changes to the wellbeing strategy that was implemented at the university, as well as more practical on-campus things, so the sports facilities, for example. But ultimately, it's all about keeping student voice at the heart of what the project does and the way in which the project operates. So yeah, it's a really exciting project to be a part of, I'd like to say. The way in which the student engagement team that I'm a part of collaborates with the Students' Union, I think is very interesting, but I'm sure we'll talk about that shortly.
Sure. And has it kept going during the last 12 months, obviously during the pandemic, or has it been more important?
So prior to the, well, essentially at the beginning of the academic year, in September 2020, we actually made the decision to pause the RH100 for several months in light of a particularly busy period. I'm sure everyone will relate to that, and the adaptations that we needed to make. However, in recent months, particularly as things have started to change in the UK, and just recently, for example, the lockdown, the third lockdown was relaxed slightly, and things have started to change on campuses. We identified the need to kickstart the project once again. And so it's really exciting to say that we're going to be holding 2 panel sessions in May in this third term, which is predominantly centered on student examinations and assessments. So it's really exciting to be bringing the project back at a time and to give students something to get involved in. So the topics that we're going to be discussing, one of them is to be confirmed, but the other one is centered on value for money, so to speak. So the way in which students, how their fees are spent at the university and how they would like to see a breakdown of those fees. So I think a really exciting topic, and one that students, I'm sure, will receive well as well.
Great, thank you, Jack. That's great. Mushtak, maybe I can ask you, do you think that model of having sort of a series of focus groups and representative students from different areas, different faculties, different nationalities, do you think that's applicable at your university, or not just your university, I guess, across Malaysia as a whole?
Yeah, I think, yes, it is. Definitely, I think the more we engage with the students and hear them and make them feel like partners is absolutely the better. And if I were to reflect over the experience with Heriot-Watt University in Malaysia, just like Raja said, we have students representation on this court, which is our highest governing body, and the student leaders are members. They don't just attend the first half an hour, they attend the entire meeting. They are also represented on Senate and the University Committee for Learning and Teaching. And so we have student representation throughout. Actually, sometimes the students complain because of the number of hours they have to, to put to represent these students. But specifically, we had an initiative, we call it the Student Partnership Agreement. And that's an agreement that's signed between the Vice-Chancellor and the 2 Provosts in Dubai and myself in Malaysia, as well as the student leaders, the President of the Student Union in the UK, the President of the Student Council in Dubai, and also the President of the Student Association in Malaysia. And every year we sort of renew our commitment to this, and there is a focus. So it could be well-being, it could be other things, but it is very visible, and we signed that agreement in a ceremony, and it's a joint commitment between these students body and also the leadership of the university, that we are focused on the topics that the students are interested in. What Jack said about value for money, I think this is really a very valid point, and I think in our university we call it evidencing value, because people have paid the hard-earned money for us. I mean, our university is a very unique in that we are a charity and a public university in the UK, but we operate as private universities both in Dubai and in Malaysia. And we need to show that both the taxpayers in the UK and also our student funders and fee payers in Malaysia and Dubai, that they are actually getting the value for the money. And I think that increasingly that will be a requirement of academic institutions to show how the money is being spent and how is this bringing value to our most important stakeholder, our students.
Sure, thank you. Prof. Kamila, how about you from your perspective in terms of this Royal Holloway 100? Do you think it's a model that's applicable in Malaysia or within UM?
Well, I wouldn't say that we don't have any such models at all. It may come in a different form, but I would say that the engagement in such in such a context would be more under the purview of the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Student Affairs, because he actually oversees such activities with the students. So that's, if not on a formal and official basis, they are constantly, communicating with him. In fact, even during the pandemic, I would have more, formal engagements with them. For example, when we were right in the middle of the, second week or the third week of the pandemic, we actually held a session online just to get some feedback from the student leaders and for them to actually voice their concerns about how things are going, and they would tell me how classes are going and how actually in that first part of the MCO, I must say the students were very, very appreciative of what the university had done, and how much their lecturers had put into the lessons that were done in a very, very different than usual way. So there was that kind of appreciation coming from the students, but at the same time they also used the platform to tell me what they want and what their demands may be. So just within the context of that period of time, we actually came up with the first edition of guidelines on teaching and learning online. And the guidelines were actually written by our ADEC, which is our training unit for lecturers, but with a lot of input from the students through my online discussions with them on what they were going through in the classes themselves. And I mentioned just now about having a postmortem at the end of the semester, just to find out how things had gone during the semester. So even during that time, we had the student leaders attend, not just the official student leader group, but also from the international side, because we have the Universiti Malaya International Student Association as well. So we had 4 of them, I think, attending the postmortem. And then through that, we came up with the second edition of the guidelines for teaching and learning online. So their participation and their input is actually very, very important to us, even though we don't have such a
formal structure.
Formal structure as Royal Holloway. And but then I should also mitigate that by saying that perhaps, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Academic and International have some sort of program going on,
Sure.
which may not be so, widely known. So, yeah.
Understood. Yeah. Raja, if I can turn to you. In the publication, we spoke about the looking at students' unions and the potential of student unions returning to Malaysia. I say student unions specifically because obviously student unions leaders they'd be full-time, they'd be paid positions, they'd have a year off study, and they'd have real decision-making roles probably at the highest level. Do you think Malaysians or Malaysian parents or Malaysian students would be ready for this?
All right, thank you. Yes, okay. So talking about student unions per se, right? I believe that with the existence of student unions, basically they have it allows for greater power and freedom for students. So now they would be able to do more events or have more club societies without like direct scrutinization by the student affairs department, right? So with this in place, students are able to dictate how they run events, what kind of exposure should other students in the university receive, right? What kind of debate should they have? What kind of topics should be discussed in the forums, whether it be political or controversial topics and all of that. And I believe that from the perspective of students, and if we are ready, I believe right now that students, like the youth of Malaysia, I believe that we are ready. We are ready to have this kind of mature discussions on how to run a proper student union and how to ensure that the student community in the university receives the best, right? So I think I can take an example. I'm not sure if you've heard, but Malaysia had we had this initiative called Parliament Digital, which was held somewhere in the middle of last year, which consists of youth, first year students, second year students that held positions in this virtual parliament, and they were able to identify issues that were faced by Malaysians, be it minorities, be it any social issues, and they were able to really analyze these issues and propose policies in a very refined and mature manner, right? So if the concern is on youth being immature or being too young to run these student unions, I think that shouldn't be a concern, right? And I believe that the youth are ready. But I think for me, the question would more of be on the side of those that are currently in power, right? Are they ready? Are they ready to hear the fresh ideas that youth are going to bring to the table without saying that, oh, this is millennial culture or very Gen Z way of doing things, right? So I think that would be more of the question that I would have, because I think, Guy, in the beginning of the session you mentioned as well, I think Malaysia, a lot of policies and initiatives are very dependent on our political climate. So student unions have the discussion came up in 2019, with the abolishment of the University and University Colleges Act and proposing student unions, but with the new government now, we don't hear much of it, and we don't know if in the future years the topics will even come up again, right? It's very dependent on what people believe they should see and they should do, especially in this political climate that we have. But yeah, I believe that if we want to be ready, we can be, and obviously it wouldn't be a smooth sailing journey. There will be bumps, there'll be setbacks, students won't be heard, and then the power shift wouldn't happen as smoothly, and etc. But I believe that empowerment doesn't happen in a day, and if we want it to happen, we should start somewhere soon, right? So maybe in the 5 to 6 years in the future, we will then see how these youth are empowered and student unions are able to run well. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, so we need to build some solid foundations to start now and to build into the future. Thank you. That's great. Ken, over to you again from the employer perspective, and looking beyond academic qualifications. How much value do you put as a kind of potential employer on students being involved in these kind of bodies and making sure that they're representing other students, they're involved in student representative councils, etc. How important to you is that as an employer?
Thanks, Guy. And actually, that's $1 million questions a lot of students ask, right? Especially in this new world that we're living in. Without a doubt, I think compared to many years ago, academic was in a way a privilege, right? I remember my parents were not even a university graduate, and they didn't even have a degree. But now, having a degree is quite common in that sense. Whereas then, obviously in this new world that we're also living in, academic will be part of what is required for you to be able to, step into the workforce. But ultimately, it is more than just academic. Okay, and referring back to even the framework that governs, the type of talents that PwC recruit, we actually have a framework that's called PwC Professional. And inside PwC Professional, there are 5 attributes. And the 5 attributes comprises of things, as a student, right, that would involve you obviously in your academic itself. But then on top of that, what are some of the other experience that the individual would carry with them that makes them, the individual that, we will want to hire with to the organization. And within this PwC Professional framework, if we look even closer to the attributes itself, it includes mainly 5, one of which is whole leadership, okay, and followed by relationships, business acumen, global and inclusive, then subsequently technical and digital. As you can see, right, within the PwC Professional framework, one of the attributes that's highlighted is whole leadership. And when we think about whole leadership, it is not just about leading others, but it is also leading yourself. And the more so or not now in this pandemic, because upskilling is a topic that is very hot, especially in this market, and everyone is wanted to basically find a way to upskill. And because of the new world that we're living in, and with the technologies that is available, it is just a matter of us getting on with our gadgets, right, or a smartphone, as I would have called it, to just do a search, and you will be able then to find tools or digital assets or apps that you will be able to easily download and upskill yourself. Compared to a time when I grew up, right? I still remember I didn't grow up with a fancy phone called iPhone. I actually grew up with a phone called Nokia 331310, right? And I was playing Snake with my phone. And if I were to get information, there were still these things called newspaper. Not even sure whether the audience and the students here still remember what that is. And now to get insights and to get info, it is just as easy as Googling it, and you will be able to get the info tips right off your hand. So really then back to the question, right? Whether is academic the sole attributes that any employers will look for. I think very comfortably now in this world that we are in, academic is part of an enabler. There are others, which includes things such as the softer skills, right? That a lot of employers are currently seeking after as well. And if you're interested in this topic of what we define as future skills, right? In PwC, we have a lot of articles in regards to what will be the new skills in this new world that we're living in, and happy for any one of you to go search and understand a bit more of what this future skills mean. Okay,
that's great, and thanks for making us feel very old, because I remember the times when there were no mobiles at all. So
we were the same era.
Okay, thanks. Jack, over to you. In terms of student unions, does the Royal Holloway 100 replace student unions, or is it sort of a partnership with the student union?
Yeah, thank you, Guy. I think it's a really interesting question. I think my colleagues at the Royal Holloway Students' Union might be a bit grumpy with me if I were to come on and say that we don't need students' unions anymore. But I think from both a personal and professional capacity, I think the short answer to that question is no. I don't think that the panel project replaces the need for student unions. Student unions are hugely important. I think especially in the UK, they have a very solid identity. And to talk specifically about the Royal Holloway Students' Union, we benefit massively from a collaborative relationship, especially with regards to the RH100 panel project. The Student Union are important when it comes to agreeing the topics that we're going to discuss. We always consult with them and ensure that there's no overlap in terms of work being done. They're always happy to help with the facilitation at panel sessions, whether that's in person or online. They're very useful in helping us with that sort of thing. And as I mentioned, with the panel returning for this third term, they've been incredibly helpful when it comes to the recruitment of panelists, reaching out to already engaged students in order to advertise the panel as returning. So they've been incredibly helpful in that regard. As I say, I think they have a very clear identity at British institutions, and you know, whether it's the umbrella of activity that sits under the students' union, such as sports clubs and societies, just as 2 examples, I think they're seen as a key enabler for social activity within universities. I think a lot of people will make their friends through the students' union, and they're very important in that regard. I think that they're champions of student voice as well, ultimately. They run policy inquiries, and they have a platform called Bright Ideas, which is all about those small things, like something on campus that needs to change, like the back gate needs to stay open for longer, for example, those small things. So I think they're really good at gathering that sort of information. And ultimately, the RH100 is a useful project, and it's recognised, I think, at Royal Holloway. It's a paid opportunity for students as well, and a lot of initiatives within the students' union are voluntary, such as at Royal Holloway, their collectives and their executives. So there's a nice differentiation there. And the panel-based project is recognised, I think, at multiple institutions. So we have a really good relationship with King's, for example, in central London, and they would agree that the collaborative relationship with the students' union is really beneficial to how the panel has developed and where it is now.
Great, thank you very much. That's great. Let's move on a little bit. And Prof Mushtak, maybe we can think about you come from a fairly unique institution in that you've got campuses in Scotland, in Dubai, and in Malaysia. Have you seen are there any major differences between the student voice across your campuses? Are UK students more vocal?
Not necessarily. Actually, you are right. We have that difference. We are a public university in the UK, private here in Dubai, and also we cater for slightly different types of students from a cultural point of view. But where we've noticed is actually our students in Malaysia, they expect a certain level of service because they are also paying a premium fees. We also notice that our biggest challenge may not be with the students, but with their parents, who expect to be entertained and be given information about their their children's performance, and which we can't do under the GDPR, as you know. But interestingly, I think because our students work together, particularly at the student leaders level, they are really quite a well-knit community. So we haven't noticed big differences in terms of culturally of how they voice their requests. The requests themselves are different. So, for example, in Malaysia and Dubai, you would receive requests for fees waiver and reductions and things like that. While, as you know, Scottish students don't pay fees, so that's the last on their list. But I think. We say we are a globally connected university, and I think maybe we have been successful in sort of bringing the students together. So I don't think that I've noticed that stark difference between our students and the way they expressed themselves.
Great, thank you very much. We've got about 20 minutes left, I believe. Please, we've got over 50 people in the audience. Please feel free to ask questions. I will direct them to whoever I think appropriate, or indeed you can in your question. So feel free to type in any questions you have. I'll turn it over to the audience in about 10 minutes or so. But Prof Kamila, can I ask you specifically about UM, because obviously UM is an interesting case study. Your student leaders have historically become politicians, and your campus in the past has been a hotbed of student activity. Do you think today's students are more passive and that they're more focused on employment and less concerned with, I don't know, for sake of a better word, wider issues, or global issues?
Well, I don't know if they have become more passive, but I feel that they are more directed in how they want to be political, or what do you call it, instrumental in how they are pursuing higher education, because many of them, well, I would say we do have a student union. They're very active, but I cannot say that all of them are involved. in the student union, I mean, they are a part of our Senate, and we do get them, sitting in Senate and, voicing their concerns in Senate to the Vice-Chancellor as well, individually, because they do have regular sessions with the Vice-Chancellor as well. So they're quite vocal, they're quite free to speak their minds, but I don't really see them being very political in the sense that, students of before, I think they may, but I do see them featured in the media as they go to, see the ministers and, the different ministers, and they have sessions with the various different departments in the Ministry of Higher Education. So perhaps they might be going in that direction in pursuing more political type of agenda. But then I do find that the students that voice their concerns on campus are more pragmatic, in the sense that they look out for the interests of their colleagues, their peer, and what the weaknesses in the management of the university may be. So they might highlight those kinds of aspects, rather than political, rather than being a political agenda. So they would highlight this particular group of students may have difficulty in such and such areas, and so they are really, in a sense, speaking up on behalf of the other students.
So they're kind of looking for practical solutions, which I think we've mentioned before as well. Jack mentioned the case of simple things like keeping a gate open or something. So perhaps more pragmatic and less idealistic. Would that be?
Less idealistic? I don't know. They're being very practical, I think.
Just practical, yeah.
If they were being, well, I know of the past student leaders who, and I know at least a few of them who are pursuing higher, degrees now. So
Sure.
They're not all necessarily going into the direction of politics.
Great, thank you very much. We've got a question actually from the audience, which was a kind of question that I was going to ask, but Aaron Saw has asked it in a much better way. He's directed to you, Raja, but I'm going to also ask Jack the same question, and also Kent. What are your peers most concerned about? Are they thinking about the future, or are they more concerned about the immediate present? And that kind of reflects on what Prof. Kamila has been saying as well. So Raja, what do you feel? Current students, are they thinking about the future? Are they thinking about the immediate present? What are their concerns? And Jack, if you could also think about that question as well. Raja.
Okay, yeah, sure. So sharing from a student council president perspective, right, the issues that we get are obviously revolving around the more immediate present, right? The issues that they're facing with funding, with facilities, with, from a student's perspective, they're like, I'm going to sit at university for another 3 years. I want it to be this way. I want to have this ABC to be done, and why is it not done? And what can I do to make sure it's done? Can I talk to this person? Can I talk to the management, etc., right? Students towards the final year would be more directed towards, what sessions are we having with industry partners? What sessions are we having for how are we making our students more employable in that sense, right? But I also think that, students, while being very concerned about their immediate present, they're also, in the sense, the future is in the back of their minds, because students know, challenging the management, a challenging institution would affect, would cause bigger effect, which might not even allow them to graduate, or even allow them to even get a job at the end of the day, right? Like for example, if you want to request for a certain change in the management, let's say, and you would know, as students, I think students easily are more informed that okay, let's say organizing a protest isn't the right way, because you would end up certain circumstances that would happen to you, which would you might not then be able to graduate and get a job and etc. So while students still request and want the need for current immediate things in their current immediate presence, right? I think majority of students still keep that part of the whole future direction of like themselves in the back of their minds. Yeah, that's not saying that protesting is wrong and etc. No, it's just saying that students are now, because of circumstances that it would affect them in the future, right? They're more aware of what they do. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And Jack, over to you from the UK perspective. if you could think about, yeah, students thinking about the future, the immediate present. I mean, obviously it's fairly unique time, so.
Certainly, yeah. I think it's a great question, and I might struggle to add anything to Raj's excellent answer, because I think that covered a lot of the bases. I think it really does, it really is a bit of both, I suppose, and it differs depending on the year group that we're talking about. I think, and I'm sure colleagues feel similarly, when looking towards September 2021 and how the next academic year will look and feel, I think that for everyone in the university sphere is it's a source of uncertainty. It's hard to say what will change between now and then, and it really, I think, does affect the entire student population. It could be those final years who are perhaps unable to graduate in person this year, and I think in that sense they're concerned about the short term, you know, that what's happened in terms of the physical event side of things and that sort of thing. But it's like Raja picked up on the employability aspect and how the job market could look in 6 months' time, for example. I think there's a really big gap as well in terms of those first year students who might have come into the university and are they might have been unable to socially connect with students as they would in a normal year. And then when you're thinking about housing for the second year and perhaps not living in university halls, I think that it's those sort of individual circumstances which really the spotlight is on at the moment. So yeah, a really interesting question. I think it's the short and long term ways of thinking are just being changed for all of us, for students and staff alike.
And yeah, and that's great. And you, yes, as you say, you raised a very interesting point that people at different level, first year, second years, third years, are going to have very different concerns. Thank you. Kent, over to you. Same sort of question. I mean, students, you've obviously, you're facing graduates mainly. Have you noticed a change in their attitudes in terms of looking at the present, looking at the future?
Well, to no surprises, right? Not just the graduates, but even general workers. A lot of us are really in that mode where we are also a bit worried about whether do we still have a job in the longer run, right? For one, is because what the pandemic has brought to us. For two, it's also with all the technologies coming on board, right? A lot of individuals then are also worried whether our robots are going to take over our jobs and roles or not. So that has been a constant topic and discussion for a lot of individuals, right? I wouldn't even say graduates, but specifically for the graduates, obviously is one of the group that is most impacted given the pandemic that has brought on to us. And why I say that was because I realized a lot of graduates, right? The discussion that we normally would have with them is going to focus on how to get themselves ready for the future, and a lot of them are really uncertain right now as to what their future looks like even after graduating. To no surprises, obviously specifically in Malaysia, unemployment rate for graduates is going higher and higher, and hence then a lot of the topics coming from the students are really around how do I upskill myself, how do I prepare myself, and how do I stay relevant in this new world. And that's then the trend that we have been seeing during the past year, ever after since MCO has been started in Malaysia. But again, right, this has not been an unfamiliar topic even in the past prior to this pandemic. A lot of us were a bit worried, but it has just been accelerated, as I would have called it, right? Where this issue would have been something that we would see it slowly arising in the next 5 to 10 years, say, for example. But suddenly, within a year, we all need to start. We all really need to start thinking about the future, and hence then I would say that's the slight differences. It has just accelerated, but this future-proofing workforce, right, has been one hot topic among the students.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks, Ken. And we've got one more question from the audience, which I'm going to rephrase slightly. It's from Ronaldo, and he's saying, how lenient should professors be in the middle of this pandemic? I'm going to ask the question to Mushtak and Prof. Kamila. So that, as again, how lenient should the professors be? And I guess this is, you know, obviously students are under pressure in terms of worried about whether they can move on to the next year, whether they can graduate. So I guess it's not just, you know, the leniencies of individual professors, it's the whole policy of assessment. So Prof. Kamila,
I
Prof.
think,
Mushtak, whoever wants to take that first. Prof. Mushtak.
Thank you.
And
Yes,
I
think really the key element wasn't leniency, but was empathy, Guy. And when we recognize the challenge that our students are going through and balance that with the, you know, very important requirement that we need them to progress on time, we need them to be able to be that, you know, when they graduate and go to apply for jobs, we don't want people to say you are the pandemic generation, you know, the knowledge that you've learned is by any way less. So what we did, we definitely reduced the number of things that they need to submit, and we moved quite a bit of the assessment to the continuous assessment. So they will do fewer things to be submitted, and they will carry more weight. And in terms of examination, we still keep the examination, but now, for example, we give them the exam paper. The exam paper stays with them for 24 hours, and then they solve it and they submit it. And that required that, because now it's an open book. So it required that we do the exam in a different way, focusing on understanding, on personal interpretation rather than the knowledge, which is something, interestingly, we think maybe we should keep even after the pandemic, because just like what Kent was saying just now, you know, the knowledge is available. I mean, the information is available online. People could just, so why would you give anyone marks for being able to remembering things, while what we want to put them through is really the, you know, how do they interpret this information and transform it into knowledge and things that help them make decisions. So interestingly, you know, my son is attending our university as a year one student, and then he's having all these papers on his own, and when I say, "Oh, are you scoring an A?" He said, "No, I barely can get a C. You know, this is very difficult stuff." But it's difficult in a good way, I think, because all the information is available for him. There's no time pressure, 24 hours. But at the end of the day, I think we are producing people who are capable of standing on their own feet when they are to be received by the industry.
Thank you. Prof. Kamila.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if, like, you know, people actually went easy on the students, because at the beginning of the pandemic, because everybody was very concerned that the students were not getting it, because you know, it's a completely different world in teaching and learning and going online and all that. So the comments that I got from the students were that in the beginning, the lecturers were really overzealous in giving them assignment after assignment after assignment. So basically that was what we had faced at the start. But that was only at the start, and you know, until it phased out a bit and people got more used to it. And you know, we cannot actually afford to be, you know, being easy. If you say how should the lecturers be, you know, in terms of leniency and all that, we've got course learning outcomes, we've got program learning outcomes that we have to fulfill. So like Mushtak, we actually had converted a lot of the assessments through alternative assessments. So there was a lot of self-reflection, e-portfolio and things like that, instead of the normal exams and continuous you know, assessment and all that. So we brought into place, you know, a more flexible way of awarding the students an incomplete grade if they are not able to fulfill certain exams and certain assignments, you know, especially for those who had to be away from the labs and away from their studio, so they can come back and just do that part of it and get the grade the next semester. We actually sent out a survey to all students and staff to see if they might be, you know, if they would like to have the courses being assigned pass or fail instead of, a grading system. So we sent out that survey as well. And surprisingly, we got a 50-50 verdict. 50% said, yes, they want to go for a pass-fail, and 50% said, no, we want to go for the normal grade. So, the ones who said no, obviously, wanted to have the A's and the A+ and all that on their transcript. But, it became a Senate, discussion, and we actually discussed it at length. And, eventually we decided that let's just go ahead with, the grading, the normal grading system. So everybody was pretty happy with that. So no, I don't think we should go easy or be lenient, but people just have to be flexible and agile. They have to be able to adapt, and they have to be agile and, change the method of assessment without forsaking any, quality in the courses and the programs that we provide. That's key.
Thank you. Thank you. Jack, Raja, I mean, from student perspectives, were you hearing from students around your campus that they were concerned about assessment? I know that in surveys that we did, certainly one of the key areas was, assessment and tests, and will I be able to complete? How can I do my assessment and test? Were you getting, Raja, were you getting that from your students?
Yes, definitely. There were a lot of concerns on virtual examination as well, as to, just to maintain quality, because, we're doing it virtually, right? So, what if there were questions from the students on, like, what if the management is concerned about, copying, right, during examinations, and for that sake, they increase the bar, like the grade, and then would that, mean that we will be getting lower grades and etc. A lot of concern on that area as well. Another area was also that, this isn't surprising, but, we received complaints from students who were saying that their home environment wasn't conducive, like, being at home, families, having family issues, and, not being able to sit down in front of the laptop for 3 hours to sit for a virtual examination, that being impossible with the distractions at home, and, maybe having family members that don't actually understand what they're trying to do, with studies and exams and etc.
Sure.
So those were concerns that were raised as well, for students requesting for, maybe a 2-day period for assessment instead of like a 3-hour sit down one-time assessment, So all of this were definitely channeled to our management, and concerns that were actually channeled to our management, yeah.
And did they make the changes that students were suggesting?
Yes. So actually, yeah. So I think a majority of our departments in the university actually shifted to a more of a open book examination. But I think that what Prof.
Similar to what
Mushtak
Mushtak
mentioned
was saying,
also,
yeah.
right? Yes. You have the information, but how do you answer this, like a higher order thinking skill kind of question? How do you implement what information is given, and interpreting it into like knowledge and how you answer? Yeah. So we
Great.
moved to that
Thank
kind
you
of.
very much. Jack, what about in the UK? Similar concerns?
Yeah, I would say so. The answers from the other panelists, I think, are all extremely interesting to hear, and certainly similar experiences. It's actually a point that Kent made around upskilling and employability, and I think that has been particularly prevalent in this year, in that students have been forced, I suppose, to move online and for online learning. And I think it's particularly interesting to consider the skills gained from that. And I think that this upcoming panel topic of value for money, I think that this is the year in which to have that discussion almost, because the way in which students perceive the value that they're gaining, or perhaps the value that they may have lost through the move to online learning. And I think assessment's very much coupled with that conversation. It's very interesting, and I'm certainly interested to see how students, what they talk about at their session and what the conclusions are that we can gain. But yeah, certainly I would say similar concerns. It's something which has affected such a wide variety of individuals, I feel. But as I say, the comments from the other panelists, I think, are all extremely valuable.
Guy, can I add a bit here?
I think we're just losing you for a moment there, Jack, I'm afraid. But
can I just add a bit?
Yeah,
here
please go ahead.
Topic, right? I think learning is progressive, right? And I think Prof. Kamila actually shared a very important point there, which is being agile, right? And even if you look at within PwC or even in the workforce itself, none of us expected to suddenly work overnight, from home, where we were so used to, going into the office and actually calling that as work, right? And overnight that has excelled, and now we're all, in this platform called Zoom, having all of these webinars as well, where we would have had it, at university or different campuses. And things are going to change, right? And I think what Prof has mentioned in regards to being agile is key. And even when it comes to learning as well. So one thing that I wanted to also very highly pointed out in PwC is the fact that, our learnings is also driven to a concept now where it's citizen-led, right? A lot of the time when we think about learning, it's top to downwards, okay? But with the citizen-led initiative, we have also seen, right, the younger staff within PwC educating our senior leaders on even digital acumen as well, where I think when we had to transition through working from home, a lot of the senior leaderships, right, actually, weren't so familiar with the kind of tools that were available. And obviously then, the younger ones, right, because that's what they grew up with and they use it on a daily basis. And in order to make it, an accelerated learning for the senior leaders, right, then we actually have the younger ones that actually taught them how to use and how to have a social media presence. And learning is really, about two bodies and trying to at the end of the day have some sort of learnings that you gain out of it. And even a lot of the work that we do, right, things such as digital accelerator, as we would have called it in PwC, are all led by, staff on the job itself, identifying what are some of the opportunities that could be improved, and then subsequently coming out with solutions and sharing it with the leadership so that they can also implement it, in their daily work itself. So all in all, learning is progressive. And the key is, like what Prof has shared, being agile is important. That's
great. Thank you so much. Sorry, my web camera went down for a bit there. I'm sorry, I dropped off for a moment. But thank you so much, everybody. I think, Phoebe, are we almost out of time?
Yes, yeah, we're close. We've got like 3 minutes left and we have no more questions.
Okay, well, let's just finish quickly and literally you've got about 30 seconds for each of you to give an answer. Do you think that the new technologies have made the student voice easier or more difficult to capture? Prof. Kamila, first of all, over to you. New technologies, have they made it easier or more difficult to capture the student voice?
Easy.
Say again?
Easy. You wanted a short answer.
Okay, yeah. Easier. But is it difficult because there now are so many voices coming in?
No, the voices are important.
Right.
So yeah, so now even meetings, when it's a very short meeting, even among colleagues, I say like, please don't come to my office. Let's just have this online, so, it's so much easier. And the students are also saying that, it's so easy now to access everybody, including their lecturers.
Excellent. Thank you. Prof. Mushtak.
I think it really depends. There are people who really found that technology enables them, but there are people who struggle to bring themselves through the technology. And I think as in almost everything, the middle ground would be the best way. So I personally miss walking through the campus because I could tell so much by just seeing everybody. I could see everyone by going to lunch and seeing them in the cafeteria, for example. So some people were enabled, some people were, struggled as well. So it really depends.
Great, thank you very much. Yes, the combination of the two, having that face-to-face contact is and those kind of the meetings that you can have with students. Jack, over to you. New technologies, has it made it easier or more difficult to capture the student voice?
Apologies if I had webcam or internet issues during that.
No, I think it was my. Don't worry, I think it was my end. I think it was my problem. Sorry.
I totally echo what Prof. Mushtak has just said around it being a blend. I think it's really useful. Those pulse surveys, for example, mentioned by Prof. Kamila earlier on the call as well. Like getting that feedback quickly is now easier than ever. But I think elements like the social side of things are lacking more now than before. So I think a blend moving forward is really what's going to be seen as successful best practice for institutions in the UK, certainly.
Great. I think we're going to have to leave it there. Sorry, Raja and Kent, not asking that question to yourselves, but I think Jack summarised that quite nicely. And we're all looking forward to be back on campus as well. Phoebe, have you got any closing remarks you need to make before I say thank you to everybody?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Guy. That brings us to the end of our webinar. Thank you very much to all our esteemed speakers for sharing your valuable expertise and for the very insightful discussion today. Thank you also to our attendees for joining us today and for sending in your questions. We hope you'll join us again for an upcoming event tomorrow. The next webinar is in conversation with the CEO of MDEC, or the Malaysian Digital Economy Corporation. Further information can be found on our events page on our website, www.bmcc.org.my, or through our weekly e-newsletter, which we encourage you to sign up for. Once again, thank you for attending. Take care, stay safe and healthy.
Bye. Thank you.
Everyone. Hi,
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone.
Thanks for inviting here.
Have a
Thank you
good
so
rest of the
much.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.